Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth. I'm your host, the Game Master, and in this one, we're going to be talking about Invincible, Omni Man, Viltrumites, Atlanteans, Aquaman, and all sorts of stuff. But before we do that, smash that like button, check to see if you're still subscribed, and as always, leave us a comment. That helps us out with the YouTube algorithm, but also we love to hear from you guys. We have an awesome community here, and that's thanks to you. So thank you so much for being here. So I've kind of mentioned parts of this before on my podcast, but not all of it. I'm going to mention all of it now so that makes sense. And you're going to think like, what is he talking about? Like, why are you going off on this tangent? I'm going to bring it back around to Aquaman. Okay, we're just not there yet. So my day job is I'm an art teacher. I went to art school. My goal with all of that was I actually remember in the 90s walking into a toy aisle, and the toys I specifically had in mind was the Ninja Turtles action figures. Turtles were hot stuff in the 90s. And partially because of the 1987 Turtles cartoon, which I think lasted for 10 years. I think that was still going in 97. So that would have been, like when I was in high school and stuff like that, the show was on. But the point is, um, I would see kids run in and they would pick up an action figure for characters like Bebop and Rocksteady or Krang or whatever, and they would be like so excited. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, somebody out there had to have invented these characters, right? And like, I wonder if that guy goes to toy stores and sees this stuff on the shelf and sees kids reacting to his creations, right? And I remember thinking, like, how cool that would be. And that thought never left me. And eventually that became my goal. I wanted to be that guy, right? I wanted to take stuff that we had done in our role playing game, specifically the character of Powerhouse, who is near and dear to my heart. I wanted to take him and just share him with the world. I wanted for there to be a comic book. I was hoping it would turn into a cartoon, just like Turtles had been. Turtles was my blueprint, man. It was a comic back in the 80s, and then it was like, it was a cartoon. Later, they made movies, so on and so forth, right? Video games, you name it. And my thing, by the way, was never about the money. Believe it or not. I know that's easy to say, but I am dead serious. It was never about the money. It was all about how cool I thought it would be to like be in a toy store and to first of all just to see my stuff for sale. I think that would have been awesome. But then to see some little kid go up and grab a Powerhouse action figure and be like so excited about this action figure. Like I thought that would be really cool. And that was it. That was like my ultimate fantasy in life was that I was going to do that stuff, right? So imagine if that had happened. Imagine that I had done the comic and it had done well and they had made a cartoon about this stuff and then around the time that the Marvel movies were taken off, imagine if someone had come to me and said, "We want to make a movie about this franchise that you created." I would be so excited, right? But then imagine if they were like, "So here's the thing though, we hate everything you did. So we're going to change his powers, his appearance, his personality. He's really going to be Powerhouse in name only. And, we don't even like the name Powerhouse. We're going to call him Murder, Death, Blood, Kill. Because that's more metal, and we're gonna soup him up. We're gonna fix everything that's wrong with him. We're gonna ride your coattails, right? We're gonna pay you money to to quote unquote make a movie about your thing, even though it's not about my thing at all. So imagine that whole scenario, right? That would make me so mad. that would just make me furious if that happened. And I would feel so insulted that, first of all, they would not be coming up with their own thing that was a success, right? They are riding my coattails in that scenario. And then they would turn around and bite the hand that feeds them. That's to me just the lowest of the low, right? But the thing is, that's exactly what happens all the time now in pop culture. So my thing is, if I wouldn't want it to happen to me, I try to not support any project where they do it to somebody else, right? And the thing is, you don't know where that line is, right? So, like, how much can you change a character before it would annoy the creator of that character? And that's my thing. I am all about the rights of the creators. And by the way, I do not care one iota about things like copyright law or any of that. And I hear people say all the time, well, such and such a company owns the character. So if they want to be crappy to the creator, they can. That's all bureaucratic crap, right? I don't care about any of that. I care about respecting artists, treating people well, so on and so forth, right? I don't care about the laws. I care about respect and stuff like that. And so when it comes to the character of Aquaman, right? He was created by Mort Weisinger and Paul Norris. And I have never seen an interview with these guys and how they felt when they saw depictions of Aquaman later. Like for me, the first time I ever saw Aquaman was on Super Friends. And, that's not quite the way he was in the Golden Age. So I don't know if those guys saw that incarnation and loved it, or, did they hate it or what? I just don't know. But over the years, because there for a while, like in the 90s, I feel like when I would go hang out at a comic book store and somebody wanted to have a conversation about how much they thought a character sucked, they would use phrases like, oh, I hate that guy. He's almost as bad as Aquaman. Like Aquaman was the point of reference for talking about how much you hated a thing. And the irony is, I feel like right now is probably, I mean, I don't have any numbers to back this up. It's just kind of what it seems like to me based on conversations I've had with people and stuff like that, right? But it sure seems to me like right now, Aquaman is pretty much as popular as he has ever been, right? And a lot of people point to the Jason Momoa stuff. And I don't hate Jason Momoa. I've seen some interviews with him. He seems like he's probably a nice guy in real life. I don't know. I don't know the guy, right? But I don't think he was the right call to be Aquaman. Like if we had gotten an Aquaman movie back in the 80s, I would have gotten Dolph Lundgren, who's the guy I used for my art for this episode, right? I think Dolph Lundgren would have been an awesome Aquaman. There were other guys over the years, like when Starship Troopers came out. What was that guy's name? Casper Van Dien, something like that. I thought he would have been a cool Aquaman back in the day. But if you look at the comics, Aquaman has always been muscular. So I would be looking at, who's your, blonde guy with the muscles and stuff. That would be my Aquaman. And there has been a lot of interpretations of the character over the years where they really, really change him. And it's because I think of that attitude that he sucks, right? But I feel like there's a way you can handle it without disrespecting the creators of the character too, right? So that's what we tried to do. We were sort of between a rock and a hard place when it came to Aquaman, where like I'll be the first to acknowledge I hated Aquaman. I thought Aquaman was just awful. But I didn't want to be a hypocrite when it came to like if I want to be respected as a creator, then I need to respect other creators, right? So we didn't really do anything with Aquaman in the game that I can recall, anyways, before I took this trip. And ironically, I was on vacation the day that Christopher Reeve got his famous injury that would ultimately lead to his passing, right? I was actually surfing. Uh, we had a beach house in North Carolina at the time. Me and my girlfriend went on vacation. Her dad worked for AT&T. Um, one of his coworkers owned this beach house and was letting us use it that summer. So, and that was Duck, North Carolina. But at any rate, so I remember there was a hurricane and people were surfing in the hurricane because the waves were huge, and I was one of those guys. Well, I should correct myself. I was not successfully surfing. I was getting knocked down all the time and just absolutely beat by the ocean. Um, and I remember having a really hard time just getting to land at one point, right? Um, but the point is, I remember starting to think about Aquaman and all the crap that Aquaman can withstand, right? And one of the things that I started to think about was the Mariana Trench, which is I last I heard anyways, I think it's supposed to be the deepest point in the ocean, right? But at any rate, I was thinking about like because when I was on that vacation, not during the hurricane, it was before and after the hurricane, we did some deep sea diving. And we would go down to the ocean floor. And I mean, mind you, it was not a massive distance that we went down. You know what I mean? But we went down far enough that like you could feel the pressure, you could feel the weight on you, stuff like that. And it was kind of weird. I was not used to that. And I start again, my mind, I just kept going back to Aquaman. And I'm like, dude, like if Aquaman can like walk on the ocean floor, which I'd seen in cartoons and stuff a million times, and not only that, he can throw a punch or he can do things that are fast, right? I started to think about like how much weight do you need to be able to bench press to just like survive down there? And then I was like, like if he's fast down there, like how fast would he be on land when he's just in air? You know what I mean? That's not as much of like a resistance value. And that is what got all this turning. And so it wasn't that we really changed Aquaman. For instance, we completely, tried to stay true to his appearance. And we didn't say that like he can't talk to fish. You know what I mean? We just didn't have him talking to fish in our games. Like he could, he just didn't. And instead, we really just focused on strength and body. And so I did some math at the time. Once Google became a thing, we would Google stuff like, what is the actual like pounds per square inch of pressure in tons at the bottom, of the trench, the lowest part of the ocean. What would that be like if he can do something like, let's say, a push-up down there, right? We just started crunching the numbers. And so we came up with this massive strength that he would need to have. And then the other thing we took into account, and we're like, and you know what? He's half human. So if that's how strong he is, Imagine how strong the other Atlanteans are, right? And so normally we really, really, really stick to the published stats in stuff like Mayfair's old DC Heroes role playing game and TSR's old Marvel Superheroes role playing game. I see a lot of other guys online who are more inclined to change the stats. I am not. Anybody who knows me knows I am really, really, really super hesitant to do that. But because Aquaman was like the laughing stock of the superheroes in the 90s, and by the way, this was before DC did the thing where they had piranhas eat his hand, which I never understood. Like, if you could just talk to fish and command fish and stuff, would you not tell them to stop? I don't know. I've never read that issue, but it just seemed like a weird choice to me. Um, but at any rate, that had not yet happened when we were already moving in this direction, right? So so I remember we ran this game where Aquaman was at a mall, at a shopping mall. We had a lot of mall stuff back in the day. I think just as a teenager in that time period, the mall was kind of like the hub of our own social lives. So therefore, it just leaked into the game, here and there. But point being, he was in a mall. And the reason I did it was I was trying to intentionally take him out of his element. And and so we had him fighting some guy, and I remember he needed to breathe. Like, he needed to breathe salt water. And so we had him go to the food court and get like a salt packet like he'd put on French fries. And he like picked a water fountain that was like bolted to the wall and just like picked it off of the wall with his super strength. And it started to like spray water. And so he tore the salt open in his hands and then got like hands full of water and put it over his mouth and breathed in. And then he was like holding his breath. And then he turns and looks at the guys with like an angry look on their face, and they're kind of like, "Oh." And like in my mind, I could see the whole thing. Like, I could like imagine just seeing a guy kick a water fountain off of the wall 50 feet down whatever, the middle section of the mall there, like it was nothing. Like you or me kicking an empty Kleenex box or something, right? Like, that would be intimidating, I would think. So, like, that was our Aquaman. And that was, I think, the very first adventure that we ever ran in terms of the order we played the adventures in. I mean, because then we went back and we did Golden Age Aquaman stories. That's not what I'm talking about. That was the very first time we ever had Aquaman in an adventure. And that set the tone for every appearance of Aquaman after that, where it wasn't that he was like, I'm so metal, it wasn't like that. It was just he was like a serious hero. That was something I hated about, like, I generally speaking, I liked the Brave and the Bold cartoon, but their Aquaman was so cheesy. Where they got Bender from Futurama to be the voice of him. I have a friend named James who loves that version of Aquaman, and I'm just like, I don't like that at all. He's cheesy. I don't like the Jason Momoa Aquaman. I don't like the Justice League Unlimited take on Aquaman. I think most people's take on Aquaman is pretty bad myself. But at any rate, yeah, we just made our Aquaman tough as nails. And then we made him really function in combat more like the Incredible Hulk, where he just gets in there and punches and stuff like that. And according to the DC game, the orange shirt is got something to do with him breathing, where he is absorbing water out of the shirt somehow when he's on land. And the thing at the mall was, I can't remember what happened now, but he didn't have the shirt at the time, so that was why he was having breathing issues. But yeah, so all that said, we had the Viltrumites from Invincible, go to Earth to start trouble, and Earth is more water than anything else, right? So we did Viltrumites versus our Atlanteans, And our Atlanteans just destroyed them. And by the way, when we had to come up with stats for the Viltrumites, I was looking really carefully at the cartoon in the fight between Omni-Man and his son, Invincible. And to to me, it doesn't look like they're pulling their punches at all, right? And we consistently see them doing stuff that lines up with the stats they give the post-crisis Superman. So specifically, everybody talks about that scene where Omni-Man is like, "Think, Mark, think," right? That's become kind of a meme. He throws him into a mountain. We see how much stone is damaged, right? When you're looking at the collateral damage of how they are interacting with the material strength of physical objects in their vicinity, all of that to me says they basically have a strength of around 25 APs, right? Our our Atlanteans are higher than that, and again, that was just based on us crunching the numbers of what does it take to do this stuff, how many tons of ocean are on top of you if you were or down there in the Mariana Trench, stuff like that. And like I said, we were saying if Aquaman was half human, the way we run Aquaman then is kind of like he's at a disadvantage, right? We do sort of see that in the first Jason Momoa movie where he's trying to learn how to fight underwater, all that stuff. So we kind of did that in a way, just without the attitude they gave him. I know a lot of guys that refer to that version as Aquaman as Aqua Bro. I think that's pretty apt. you know, our guy he acted like the Aquaman in the comics. He's going to be the king of Atlantis. We thought he should be kingly, so we made him more refined and less, whatever. I'm going to hang out in a biker bar or something like that. Um, but yeah, we rolled it out and our Atlanteans just stomped the competition. And then which was nice because in a lot of these, I like to see the good guys win, and a lot of these, this guy versus the Viltrumite, encounters, bad guys won a lot, right? Or it was like a tie, that kind of thing. So I like it when the good guys actually win. And then the epilogue to this was um, some of the guys who are getting beat when they go to try to run away from Atlantis, basically. They came up out of the water and they encounter the Amazons. And then we did, that's the final sort of chapter of this is them versus the Amazons. And the Amazons are even stronger than the Atlanteans. So you can probably guess about how that's going to go. Well, yeah, that was it for this one. Um, I've been doing this at the end of all the Viltrumite videos because I want to warn people. What I've been doing for months now, right, is daily uploads. And that was because I had 40 years worth of gaming to base stuff on. Um, and this is it, right? This is the end of me catching up on all that other stuff. As of me recording this, I'm running a game tomorrow. Uh, the day after that, I will probably make a video about that game, and then I'll probably upload it the day after that. But we're out of the daily uploads now. We're going to go back to something the way like the channel used to be before I was doing all that stuff. So, whatever you guys would like to see me do, leave that in the comments section. If you want me to do like a mailbag thing, if you want me to teach people how to play DC Heroes, um, let me know what you guys want on your end, and we'll try to move in that direction. We'll do, kind of like voting. Whatever the majority wants is the direction we'll move in. And while you're leaving a comment, make sure you smash that like button and make sure you're still subscribed because YouTube loves to unsubscribe people without telling them. And that's it for me. From everybody here associated with the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, we hope you have a good one, and we'll see you in the next adventure. Bye.